The old man handed the man a pistol and asked him to kill his pet dog, and the dog looked at him innocently. This made the man unable to pull the trigger no matter what, but the old man warned him that if he didn't do this, then his ace agent test will be a complete failure, recalling the difficult love break during this period, and the dog who had been training with him. The man finally couldn't bear to shoot. The old man was disappointed and asked him to return the gun to him, but David suddenly pointed the gun at him. The result of this assessment is self-evident. Because of this ridiculous compassion, David was expelled from his spy studies. The experience of these days is like a dream. If a suit is the armor of a modern gentleman, then the ace agent is the knight of the new era. They are composed of 13 members. They are an ancient and mysterious organization. They are all codenamed after the legends of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Each of them has extraordinary skills and moves out of the city. And David, who was just a street gangster not long ago, unexpectedly learned that his father, who died young, was one of the ace special agents, worker, and as his widow, David is qualified to become a rear agent. However, faced with the proposal of the man in the suit in front of him, David refused without hesitation because he didn't believe such nonsense at all, until a group of street gangsters seeking revenge came to him. David, Harry, who was not allowed to be forced, was already planning to leave, but one of the gangsters suddenly made a sarcastic comment, and hurriedly, closing the door and sealing out any guests who went out, immediately attracted the hatred of the gangsters. As soon as he finished speaking, the wine glass on the table instantly stunned the leading gangster like a sugar bullet, but they reacted quickly and immediately raised their fists and swung them at him, but he nimbly dodged them. The fat gangster who had his front teeth knocked out had just picked up a bottle of beer when he was instantly hit by the electric shock ring released from the umbrella handle. In less than a moment, all the gangsters fell to the ground in pain. The leading gangster who woke up just took out his pistol, after noticing everything, and blocked all the bullets coming from him. The owner of the tavern wanted to call the police, but Harry just moved his hand and stabbed the owner with a test potion. This movie-like scene and the extremely elegant skills successfully conquered the heart of David, a rebellious young man. He agreed to inherit his father's legacy and become an elegant ace agent. The two came to a tailor shop. Harry reached out and touched the mirror. As the fingerprint recognition was successful, the entire floor slowly sank at this moment. "Come, your brother, run this high-speed train, the King's agent's exclusive vehicle." In just a few seconds, the train then crossed a distance of thousands of miles and arrived at another secret base. David also got a preliminary glimpse into the underworld of Ace Agent. Here, there are 8 other candidates, and I learned from the instructor named Merlin that only one of them 9 can win the title of king. The floor of the dormitory suddenly began to seep. David, who was sleeping, was awakened by a chill. He quickly stood up and turned on the light, but was shocked to find that the water had completely submerged the bed. At this speed, it would not take long to fill the entire bed. A candidate named Charlie loudly said that he could use the toilet to breathe. As soon as they finished speaking, the water level completely submerged everyone. Everyone immediately swam towards the toilet. They removed the shower head and inserted the pipe into the toilet. Using the U-shaped cavity deep in the toilet to breathe, he resolutely swam to the door and tried to open it. However, under the huge water pressure, he couldn't open it. The gate was still as motionless as death from sweat. Seeing this, he raced against time to swim towards the other candidates. He actually raised his fist and punched the glass tile one after another. Merlin outside the mirror saw this and walked aside with satisfaction. Even though it was a gamble, fortunately he got it right. Apparently David inherited some of his father's good memories very well. However, although they successfully survived the first level, in Merlin's eyes, only David was truly qualified, because everyone is only focused on escaping, but they forget the most important thing, which is the life and death of their companions. This is an extremely fatal mistake for the Kingsman who values teamwork. After several rounds of competitions, firearms, etc., only 6 people were left to skydive. At first, everyone thought this was just a simple cowardly training, but what Merlin said next, but it completely made everyone feel as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. As soon as these words came out, everyone immediately fell into deep fear. But David quickly calmed down. He suggested working in pairs and grabbing the companion next to him. That would ensure that all 6 of them could survive. But as they got closer and closer to the ground, one of the candidates was afraid and opened the landing group in advance. This also meant that the number of people changed from an even number to a metal number. Without hesitation, David immediately changed his strategy. He quickly asked everyone to form a circle and hold the hands of his companions, and then opened the landing group one by one. Only in this way can everyone survive. In the end only David and a woman named Luo Shi were left. David hugged Luo Shi tightly. As Luo Shi continued to mine, the two of them finally landed safely without any danger. This assessment once again eliminated 3 people. Although David successfully passed the trial, he was still worried about why he was the one who didn't. The unlucky guy with the parachute, is his life lower than others? But Merlin just told him to put away his poor self-esteem and opened the parachute behind him. As a reward for completing the level, all 3 of them can receive a dog as their partner. David chose the ugly pug, and soon they faced the next trial mission. They only need to trick the woman in the photo into the room. That's it. But what they didn't expect was that this seemingly simple task would have an unexpected accident. When the 3 of them came to the bar and were about to carry out their plan on the woman in the photo, they suddenly felt dizzy. Their drinks were drugged at some point. When David woke up, he found that he was tied to the railroad tracks, and a man in black appeared in front of him. He asked David straight to the point who the 3 of them were. What purpose? Who are the people in the organization behind it? They also threatened that the other 2 people had been crushed in half by the train because they were pretending to be stupid. Seeing the train approaching, David insisted on his own philosophy and still refused to reveal the information. However, following the train accident, Harry appeared in front of him, and David was safe and sound. It turns out that the content of this trial is loyalty to the organization. Charlie, who was taking the exam at the same time, had shaken off all the information because he was afraid of death. In the end, only David and Luo successfully passed the exam. It is one of the secret weapons in Kingsman's arsenal. From telescoping shoes coated with poison to custom-made pens that can remotely control toxins, there are hundreds of black and white Kingsman exclusives, large and small, technological weapons. As long as David can pass the final test, he can become an elegant ace agent like his father and officially start executing. Task. The old man handed the man a pistol and asked him to kill his pet dog. The man raised the pistol, and the dog looked at him innocently. This makes the man unable to pull the trigger no matter what, but the old man warned him that if he didn't do this, his ace agent assessment would be a complete failure, recalling the difficult love break during this period. And the dog who had been training with him, the man finally couldn't bear to shoot. The old man was disappointed and asked him to give the gun back to him. The results of this assessment are self-evident. Because of this ridiculous compassion, David was expelled from the spy school. He hugged the dog and took the car back to his long-lost home. Looking at the loyal self, the experience of these days was like a dream. But looking at the dog on the bed, David did not regret his choice at all. At this time, his mother, who was out with her sister, just came back. But David saw the bloody wound on his mother's face. This was obviously another domestic violence attack by his stepfather. David drove to find his stepfather, and wanted to vent his anger. With his current skills, it is no problem to deal with a few gangsters. But what David didn't expect was that the car window suddenly closed at this time, and then the entire car started to drive uncontrollably. No matter what he did, he couldn't stop it. Soon the car drove to an unfamiliar neighborhood, and Harry was holding a tablet and looking at him calmly. Then Harry opened the door to a room, and there was a stuffed dog inside. It turned out that he had faced the same choice back then, and he chose to shoot. David couldn't imagine why the self-proclaimed ace agent would do such a cruel thing, but Harry's next words, but he gave him a heads up. It turned out that there were no bullets in the gun in the final assessment. The drowned girl in the first level is also in a state of suspended animation and is now alive and well. These are necessary extreme tests of body and soul. Merlin suddenly received news that he had discovered the murderer of ace agent Lancelot. It was also because of Lancelot's death, the organization decided to recruit potential new members to supplement the 12 minutes of the round table. After receiving the news, Harry came to a church based on the intelligence. Just as he was about to get up and prepare to change his address for investigation, Lao He, the mastermind behind everything who had been monitoring everything, immediately opened up some kind of mysterious light. Immediately afterwards, an ultrasonic pulse that can affect the frequency of the brain is released from everyone's mobile phone, but Harry calmly took out the pistol from his arms, then without hesitation he pulled the trigger. The gunshot sounded like a huge horn, and people in the church immediately fell into indiscriminate killing of each other. The irrational believers picked up the weapons around them. The weapon attacked Harry, but was solved by Harry's power in the needle. He did not waste a bullet. Every gunshot means the loss of a life. At this time, he had also regained his senses. He walked out of the church in a daze, but Lao He had been waiting outside for a long time. Lao He is also very arrogant and no longer hides it. He created and sold a batch of free phone cards. The special signal released by this phone card can make people lose their minds and kill each other. Only people with special signals and chips implanted in their necks can shield themselves from the infection of this signal. The previous Lancelot was silenced by Lao He. Only after he discovered his plan, say it, Lao He raised his pistol. Harry's sacrifice not only caused Merlin and Arthur to fall into a long silence, but also made David devastated. As the mentor who pulled him out of the quagmire, he also made some determination at this moment. David drove to the organization's base and found Arthur. He begged Arthur to avenge Harry's death, but soon, David suddenly discovered that there was a scar with a chip implanted on Arthur's neck. David borrowed the brandy handed from Arthur and drank it in one gulp. Seeing this, Arthur took out a pen without concealing it. David recognized it as the custom-made pen that Harry had introduced to him that could turn on and off toxins remotely. Arthur invited David to become a member of the New World, but David refused without hesitation. Seeing how ungrateful he was, Arthur immediately dialed the toxin button. But the strange thing is that not only was David safe, but he felt a sharp pain in his own heart. It turned out that David had secretly changed the position of the poisoned wine while he was speaking just now. David also learned from Arthur's cell phone that in 6 hours, Lao He would use satellites to release interference signals to the world. He and a group of powerful people implanted with chips hid in a remote snow mountain camp to wait for the arrival of the New World. David told Merlin and Rossi, who had just become Lancelot, the truth that he had seen all over. Time is running out, and the task of saving the world can only fall on 3 people, and they divide their forces into 2 groups. Rossi's mission is to take a carrier to the edge of the atmosphere and use a missile to destroy one of Lao He's satellites and destroy the satellite chain. Leather shoes, watches, rings, ties, and the eagle-will glasses necessary for a gentleman. At this moment, David has officially become a real ace special agent. Work will also usher in its first actual combat mission. Using Arthur's identity, the plane quickly landed in the Snow Mountain camp, and David also used Arthur's identity as a cover to sneak into the banquet hall. He quickly found a soldier who was using the internal network and knocked him out with an amnesia potion. A knife suddenly pressed against his neck. It turned out to be Charlie, the latecomer who had participated in the agent trial with David, and Lao He, who realized something was wrong, immediately postponed the cleanup plan for 2 minutes. Merlin, who was monitoring everything in the plane, quickly urged Rossi to destroy a satellite. The sudden change in air and temperature instantly blew up one of his ascending balloons. Fortunately, she stabilized her body and took aim again. Rossi eventually succeeded in launching a missile that destroyed a satellite. This also temporarily failed Lao He's plan, and David took the opportunity to get rid of Charlie's control, and followed Merlin's remote command in the mysterious world, find an exit from the palace-like camp. The soldiers he encountered during this period were all dealt with by David with his elegant skills and bulletproof suits. The only way was to stop Lao He from placing his hands on the operating table. Before David could take a breath after meeting Merlin, he learned the truth about Diane. So after updating the new equipment, David rushed out of the plane again and went straight to Lao He's location. Along the way, he used the bulletproof function and shooting function of Heisen to block the fire of killing gods and Buddhas. But after just a moment of prestige, a soldier holding a magic god penetrated Heisen's bulletproof armor. At the critical moment, David took out a lighter and grenade from his pocket and threw it towards the crowd, but as the firepower he carried was exhausted, David was finally forced to a corner. David thought that the people who followed Lao He had self-destructive chips implanted in their necks. Since you can't hack into Lao He's satellite system, then hack into the chip's self-destruction system. Lao He in the camp immediately noticed that the chip system had been invaded, but before he could save himself, Merlin had completely activated the self-destruction program. The soldiers in the camp suddenly felt a discomfort in their necks, and then their heads exploded one after another like fireworks, walking together blindly, to the United Nations, to the conference rooms of heads of state, and finally to the powerful in banquet halls. Everyone's heads exploded like a gorgeous fireworks show, which made Lao He completely angry. He used another friend's satellite to reactivate the system, and as the phone card signal was released, people around the world fell into an indiscriminate cannibalism. The human social order is gradually collapsing. David, who was about to kill old He, was suddenly called by a woman in a secret room. However, it turns out that she is a princess of a country who was imprisoned here. The princess said that as long as David can successfully save things, picking up a rifle, David quickly rushed to the banquet hall, while Lao He's right-hand man Qin Ganjing broke the glass and killed him. The sharp-legged knife instantly cut off the rifle in David's hand, and the two entered into a close-quarters fight. Facing Qin Ganjing's leg knife, David quickly picked up a steel pipe and swung it at him, but in just a few rounds, the steel pipe was cut into a short piece and he threw away the steel pipe in his hand. It turned out that Qin Ganjing's arm had been cut by the evil knife. Neurotoxin invasion. while David picked up his butt knife, pointed it at Lao He in the stands and roared away. Lao Heijing, whose body was stably pierced, fell from the stands and ended his sinful life, while David, who had saved the world, he took away a bottle of red wine and 2 wine glasses. Merlin on the plain said that he didn't like drinking red wine, but David just ran all the way to the princess's secret room. Did you save the world? Yes. David discovered that he didn't seem to know the password to the secret room. Merlin's arm was taken away by me. Although he was speechless, Merlin still told David the password to the secret room.